Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Michael Pfaff, the President and General Manager of the Long Island Ducks. I'd like to thank you all for coming out today and welcome you to Bethpage Ballpark. Today we're joined by retired New York City fire officer and Long Island 9/11 Memorial President Ken Dolan. Ken will be dedicating a steel beam from the World Trade Center to Frank Bolton and the Long Island Ducks in recognition of their longtime friendship and support of the organization. The steel beam will be on the grounds of Bethpage Ballpark here in memory of the 490 Long Islanders that lost their lives in the attack on America in 2001. There will be a permanent plaque in the near future with the name of each victim from Long Island to serve as a permanent tribute and remembrance. And each season going forward, the hundreds and thousands of Long Islanders that come to the park each year will have the opportunity to visit this special place and this steel beam in front of the flagpoles. To begin our program, I'd call on the color guard to present the colors. Advance the colors, please. We will now ask Tom Mead to sing the national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you, Tom. Color guard, I'd now ask that you retire the colors.
Left face, forward march.
Thank you. Please be seated. At this time, the Long Island 9/11 Memorial President and retired New York City fire officer Ken Dolan, I would ask you to come up to the podium. Ken?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I just want to thank you all for taking time out of your day, especially this all-important day. There are ceremonies all over the nation today commemorating that horrible act that occurred on September 11th, 2001. And we've all either have family members, friends, and in my case, I have several probies that I trained, and several co-workers, many of which I personally worked with, and I know it's a solemn day for everyone. If it weren't for the fact that on this day we once again mourn and honor those whose lives were so abruptly extinguished 11 years ago today, I would say my burden is heavy. The sadness of the families of all who perished on September 11th trumps what we do here today. Admitting failure is not an easy task, but that's exactly what I must admit today. The people around me today spent years attempting to establish a fitting memorial to honor and celebrate the lives of the victims who came from Nassau and Suffolk counties. In the end, it wasn't to be. Our only consolation is that the fact that our centerpiece of our memorial project, a portion of a steel beam from the World Trade Center, will have a permanent home here in Bethpage Ballpark and the Long Island Ducks. Here it will in some way accomplish a small portion of our goal. At a later date, a granite stone will be placed beneath this beam with the names of the 490 victims who had at one time or another called Long Island their home. The beam, as you see it here today, mounted on this sturdy pedestal, was all done by Mr. Buddy Simmons and his crew at Budco Enterprises at Ballpark. You guys have been terrific. Big Buddy's here. Thank you, Buddy. Before we unveil and turn over the steel beam to Mr. Bolton and the team, I would like to recognize some of the people who was a seminal part of our project. Firstly, I want to recognize our architect, Mrs. Patricia O'Neill, who spent many heartfelt hours in the designing of the physical memorial. Drawing on inspiration from the knowledge that God had spared her husband from both attacks on the World Trade Center, the events of that day are permanently etched in her mind and in memory. Her memorial would have been a truly remarkable edifice that would transport one on a timeline of the events of that fateful day. Pat, you and your design are an inspiration, and I sincerely thank you for all you have done. Mr. Brian Ma, who spent countless hours drafting the paperwork that got us the grant money to keep the project going. Brian, your hard work was truly a blessing. Mr. Rudy McGlory, our attorney, assisted by his colleague Floyd Saracen from the Saracen Law Partners, who kept us running afoul of the law. I thank you, for none of us are in jail today. Just kidding, gentlemen. Your counsel was invaluable. To my executive board, Maureen Hines, Cindy LeClaire, and Bill Maynard, you are a great team. I want to thank you very much. Thank you recognitions can go on, and you wind up forgetting someone. So lastly, I want to recognize our former board president, Bob DeSilva, for being the spark that started this project these many years ago. Thank you, Bob. Bob is out there somewhere. Before I hand over this remembrance from the World Trade Center to Mr. Frank Bolton, I'd like to end with a poem by Mary Elizabeth Fry that I think would reflect the wishes of all those who so viciously were murdered on September 11, 2001. The poem is called "Do Not Stand on My Grave and Weep." Do not stand on my grave and weep. I am not there. I do not sleep. I am 1,000 winds that blow. I am the diamond glints on snow. I am the sunlight on ripened grain. I am the gentle autumn rain. When you awaken in the morn's hush, I am the swift uplifting rush of quiet birds in circling flight. I am the soft stars that shine at night. Do not stand on my grave and cry. I am not there. I did not die. Never forget September 11, 2001. One second before I do the honors of giving this wonderful memorial to Mr. Bolton, I would like to present him with a remembrance of our organization that we so long ago wanted to give him, and we really didn't have a good time to do it, but I think this is the opportune time.
Buddy, can you come on up?
Frank, this is a crystal orb and stand. And on the crystal ball that comes with this award are the apple trees that Pat O'Neill envisioned in her memorial, embracing branches that signify the world embracing us on that tragic day. So on behalf of my board, I want to present you with this memento of our appreciation.
Thank you, Ken. I accept this on behalf of the entire Long Island Ducks organization, my partner, Bud Harrelson, President General Manager Michael Fav, Seth Waugh, and myself. Thank you. We will treasure this. We had a little audible call, and Ken was to introduce me, but I think hopefully I know most of you. My name is Frank Bolton, and I'd just like to thank Ken, Maureen, Bob DeSilva, the entire committee of the Long Island Memorial, 9/11 Memorial, for this great gift that they give us today and for being here today. I'd also like to thank our special guests that include Legislator Rick Montano, who will deliver the closing remarks. And of course, to all of you for coming out and taking, as Ken said, a part of your day here to help us dedicate this World Trade Center steel beam in memory of the 490 Long Islanders who perished 11 years ago today in the attacks on America. I had the privilege of working in the World Trade Center. Before there was baseball, I worked in the financial industry and had the privilege of working in the Trade Center for over 10 years. I worked in the 80s on the 96th floor of what we used to call One World Trade Center, which you've become used to calling the North Tower. And then in the late 90s, actually after the attack in 93, I went back into the building and worked on the 93rd floor of the South Tower. And I loved the building, and I just enjoyed, with 10 years of your life, you know, that's a big chunk of your life. And you know, and I would call my wife and I'd say that you got to see these amazing sunsets, you know. If you had painted them, nobody would believe that there's that many colors in the sunset. I love the views of the Statue of Liberty, and when you go up to the, you know, go up to Windows in the World, I even enjoyed a cocktail or two up there. And I got to tell you, I miss that. But all that changed 11 years ago today, this morning at 8:46 in the morning, 11 years ago. I was sitting about 20 yards from here in my office, and Ben Harper, our ticket manager then and today still, popped his head in and said, "Frank, I think you better turn the TV on. They're saying that a small plane hit the World Trade Center." Well, I did turn on the TV set, and I saw the image of the World Trade Center, the North Tower, burning. And I knew instantly, because I knew the building very well, that I had concern, and that I had two brother-in-laws in the building, John, who was on the 25th floor, and Paul Sarl, who was on the 105th floor. I worked for Canner. John is with us gladly today. I'd like to introduce John. And Paul was not as fortunate. He perished that day along with 2,756 others. When you think about it, in less than 2 hours, the course of America really changed. That day, 2 hijacked jets flew into the World Trade Center. Again, and all this happened in 2 hours. One hijacked jet crashed into the Pentagon, killing 128. And one jet headed for the U.S. Capitol was thwarted by 40 brave passengers aboard Flight 93. And they brought that jet down in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. All of those brave passengers perishing. The Twin Towers, shortly minutes after that, actually the South Tower, 56 minutes after it was hit, collapsed. At 10:28 that morning, the North Tower collapsed. It took both those towers less than a minute to collapse to the ground, completely erasing our skyline in New York as we knew it. In total, 2,996 perished on September 11, 2001 in these horrific attacks. So in 2003, when I got a call from Bob DeSilva and Ken Dolan in their committee, and they asked me to join their efforts, it was a pretty easy decision to make. And we've worked and grown to be close friends over the years. You know, we hug it out when we see each other. They're great people, and I don't want them to think that they failed. I think that's important for them to realize they did not fail. And last year, when Ken Dolan called Michael Pfaff, it was an even easier decision to relocate this steel beam here to Bethpage Ballpark. Then Mike and I decided, let's go see the steel beam. Let's go over to Farmingdale University, where this was supposed to take place, and let's take a look at it. And when we got to Farmingdale, a few things struck me immediately. Number one, we had trouble finding it. It had actually been put aside, and no one there, as we asked, really knew where it was. And of course, that was a little disappointing to me. But when we got to the beam, Mike and I both looked at it and said, this is pretty terrific, and you know, we have a home for this beam. And it almost looked like it was waiting for us. It was actually, also, it was smaller than I thought. And it was really, really straight. I've seen been to a lot of memorials, and although the one at Captree, the steel beam is also straight, but I've seen a lot of twisted and torn and shredded steel. And somehow, this piece of steel made me feel a lot better, that it was strong, and it was straight, and it was resilient, like the American people. When the beam arrived last Thursday and was placed in front of these flagpoles by Buddy, it looked like it was always meant for this space. I hope you agree with me. Don't you think it looks perfect though? This steel beam is an important part of the World Trade Center, even though it was probably a toothpick in comparison to the steel that was there. The steel that 1,300 feet up in the air, 4.5 football fields. This is obviously very symbolic of the events of September 11th, 2001. But it's really, really important when we have that granite there that we memorialize the 490 Long Islanders. They're what really counts. They're the ones that we must always hold close to our hearts. They were someone's grandfather and grandmother, son and daughter, mother and father, aunt and uncle, cousin, friend, and neighbor to all of you. In the case of my brother-in-law, Paul, he was a husband to Linda, a father to 3 beautiful children, loving son of Norma Sorrow, who is also here today. Thank you for coming, Norma. And cherished brother to John, Peter, Norma, Laura, and my wife Karen. I pledge to Ken Dolan and the 9/11 Memorial Committee that we will be proud stewards of this gift that you have bestowed upon us. It's our hope, and my hope, and the Ducks' hope, and Buddy Harrelson's hope, and hopefully everybody here, that the 400,000 people who visit this ballpark annually to enjoy America's pastime will take time to pause, reflect, and speak to their children and grandchildren of the events of 9/11. Maybe they will even point to a name on the granite and tell a story about the person they knew, loved, and lost. Thank you all for being here today. God bless you. God bless America. At this time, I'd like to bring up Suffolk County Legislator Rick Montano, who will deliver the closing remarks. Thank you for being here, Rick.
Thank you very much, Frank, Mr. Bolton, Long Island Ducks, Mike Pfaff, Buddy Harrelson, the manager. On behalf of Suffolk County, and as the legislator from this district, I want to officially thank Mr. Dolan, I want to thank you on behalf of all of us for making this happen and bringing this tribute right here to Central Islip, to Long Island Ducks Stadium. Frank, I want to thank you for sharing this with us so that everyone here on Long Island and everywhere else, I mean, there's nothing more American than baseball and the hot dogs, and everyone that comes here will have a moment to pay tribute to those that lost their lives on that day 11 years ago. And we know that there are others whose lives are also in jeopardy because of what happened. But we're also aware that 11 years later, the perpetrator of this horrific act, Osama bin Laden, is no longer on the face of this earth. His organization that was responsible for this act is in ruins and on the run, and we look forward to the day that they are completely eliminated from this earth. But we as a community will pay tribute to those that lost their lives, the 490, and I think everyone has a personal story of someone that they knew, a family member, a friend, a loved one, that was tragically affected by this day. So I just want to, again, on behalf of the County of Suffolk, thank all of you for being here today. Thank the Ducks organization for having this memorial. And tragic as it might be, we still need to understand that we honor those that serve this country, that will serve this country. And, you know, we can never replace, but we will never forget. Thank you very much. God bless all of you.
At this time, we'll do the unveiling. Ken?
Just before we unveil, I just want to expand upon what Frank said about this piece of steel. This piece of steel I picked out of a pile, and as he illustrated, the pile was replete with twisted and gnarled and really garish-looking steel remnants of the World Trade Center. And in the center, I saw this straight piece of steel, and I said, as Frank said, this represents America. Straight, strong, and true. This piece of steel, as you can see, has a beveled edge. I've been told that it was probably an exposed piece of steel that people might have seen on a daily basis. It wasn't hidden away inside the building, inside the structure itself, but something that someone might have seen passing by on the street, or inside where there may have been a piece of steel showing. But this is it. This is a straight piece of steel that represents America. Thank you. I also want to thank all of my brother veterans for coming out today. I see members of the American Legion. I see members of the VFW. I see the brothers from the BVA. Thank you guys for coming out and honoring America here today at Bethpage Park.
Thank you, Ken. I just want to add one more thing, that we plan before opening day of next year, which will be in the latter part of April, that piece of granite with the 490 names plus a timeline of those events on 9/11 will be here, and we will have yet another ceremony. But you know, you got first dibs on anything here. Okay. Thanks for coming. I'm going to turn it over to Michael Pfaff. Thanks again.
I now ask Brian Moore to come up and deliver the benediction.
Provident God, you bless us in many ways. Today, on this somber but meaningful occasion, we recognize the 490 Long Islanders who perished on September 11, 2001, as well as the contributions of many Long Islanders who were involved in the recovery effort, as we dedicate a lasting reminder of the tragedy of that sunny Tuesday morning that changed our lives forever. The World Trade Center steel beam, a gift from the Long Island September 11th Memorial, will become a permanent part of Bethpage's Ballpark and will provoke all baseball fans to remember September 11th in their own way in the many years to come. There is more to honor, however, than this steel beam. Ken Dolan and the Long Island September 11th Memorial Committee worked tirelessly for many years to ensure that all Long Islanders who responded to the aftermath of the tragedy would be recognized for their efforts. Along the way, committee members met many people who validated what they were trying to accomplish. When Frank Bolton was approached by the committee, he responded in his usual caring way. Frank, whose early career took place on the very spot of the tragedy and thus was personally affected, was still able to put aside his own sense of loss to help others heal. Both Ken and Frank have been blessings to all of us, and we thank you, God, for putting them in our lives to show us the right direction to take. As we conclude this dedication ceremony, let us truly hear the words of Pope Benedict that were delivered at Ground Zero in 2008. We ask in your goodness to give us eternal light and peace to all those who died here, the heroic first responders, our firemen, police officers, emergency service workers, and Port Authority personnel, along with all the innocent men and women who were victims of this tragedy simply because their work or service brought them here on September 11th, 2001. We ask in your compassion to bring healing to those who, because of their presence here that day, suffer from injuries and illness. Heal, too, the pain of still grieving families and all who lost loved ones in this tragedy. Give them strength to continue their lives with courage, and hope. To this, let us all say, Amen.
Thank you, Brian. To conclude our ceremonies, I'd ask that Tom Mead once again come to sing God Bless America. Tom?
Please join me. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with a light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
Thank you very much, Tom, and thank you everyone for coming out. I hope you'll stick around for the baseball game. Gates open at 5:35. Thank you.